So from this bike, what you have done is, from a stock item which you were bought, you've modified the top tube by cutting out the existing tube.
Cut another tube apart. I have a workshop, but I didn't go there for my bender, so I just cut some tubes apart, sleeved it and bent it, welded it in, and then I reinforced it on the head tube.
Yeah.
I've changed the forks, changed the rear shock.
And the shocks themselves, you went in removing the nylon bearings and then...
These are ball bearing journals. They're 30mm ball bearing journal, 20mm ball bearing journals. That's just sleeved at the moment, but I shall put phosphor bonds in there. And this one I'm going to cut out and put another 20mm set of bearings in there.
I see.
But I probably might change this. I probably might make my own rear arm.
And the bearings yourself, these are all bog standard?
Straight off the shelf bearings. Everything I've tried to source is off the shelf and not specific.
Yes.
I mean, I printed the little, you can't see, but in here there's little nylon caps which go over, and there's nylon caps to go over and protect the ball bearings.
And they were purely printed by yourself?
Yeah, drew it up, printed it.
Yeah. Needless to say, you've got a 3D printer.
Oh, yeah.
Right, okay.
Servicing this thing, it's always ferrules around, and I changed the front forks. None of it's super high quality, you know.
But you've made it a lot more durable and functional.
Durable. Yeah, I generally run mud guards. I print my rear mud guard, but the last time I fell off, I broke it, and I haven't got round to reprinting.
Can I suggest motorcycle trolls mud guards? There's a whole range of them which would actually fit this bike off the shelf.
Yeah.
Used to be called Preston Petties, unbreakable.
I mean, I printed the first set out of POR, then I used Peta G, and now I've got some, I can't remember what it is. I haven't used it yet, but it's meant to be able to flex 4 times its thickness.
Well, that's ideal, isn't it?
But it's got to run at a slightly higher temperature.
Yeah. Can I ask on the battery, did you specify a different battery from the one which came with the bike?
Yeah. I mean, I've changed a few things on the battery as well.
Mm-hmm. Have you?
Yeah.
What the circuitry inside?
I filled it up with more batteries.
Did you?
Yeah, I can spot weld the batteries together. So.
Right. Did you check the voltage on them, the discharge? Right. Okay. Lovely.
They're all matched. Yeah. I've had a couple go on it. When I bought it, I had problems with it within about the first month, and when I took it apart, there's some cells down. The worst thing is you have to cut it all apart, take off all the, you've got to separate all the blocks of 6.
Yes.
And then you've got to strip them apart and measure each one, and then you find a few dodgy ones, because it's meant to hold 45 amps. Yes. And it wasn't.
Because there were some default individual batteries.
And I think the guy who I bought it from knew that. Didn't
right.
bother me. I took it apart.
And again, where did you source the batteries from?
eBay.
Right. This is sounding very, how can I say, encouraging for the keen DIY. I'm sure you
Everything can be made. I mean, I will one day make my own frame. I'll make it out of aluminium.
I see. So this is
I put hydraulic brakes on it, and I had to reinforce the rear brake. I've got a larger disc for the rear, but it takes so much force on it, it twists the arm.
I see. So you're looking at a larger diameter disc.
Yeah, I've got 203 on the front, and I wanted to put a 203 on the rear.
Yes.
But this, when I went to hydraulic, the first time I used it, it broke this straight off, so I had to re-weld it all back up.
I see.
And I infilled it in, and then there's a piece of 8mm aluminium.
But that's going up to 180.
Yeah, I use the rear brake a lot, actually, for balancing, going down, hit the hills and that. I don't tend to use the front so much, because it can skate. Yeah. It's an odd thing, but yeah.
And it doesn't really measure up to the forces of the rear tyre and the grip, which...
the whole thing is rubbish.
Because there's a lot of grip on these tyres. Being wider, they exercise a lot more grip on surfaces, whereas, say, for example, a 38 or a 40.
My full set. I've gone through 2 on the front and 4 on the rear. This is actually my first outing on this. Is brand spanking new, this tyre. Yeah. Tried a different compound. It's a little bit hard, but not as in the compound, but the pressure's a little bit high. But
yeah. What?
And brake spokes. I'm always spoking it.
Are you?
Yeah. The spokes are rubbish. They're 2mm.
Yeah.
The rims. I bought a load of rims off eBay, and I got the rims with really rubbishy tyres, like for £35. So they're joint rims, and they're always out on the seam here.
Yes.
So I spent ages trying to true them up. And so I have 3 front rims, 4 back rims.
Yeah.
Always have one set ready made. And I'm actually just done some modifications on my next set. Has a 12mm through shaft.
Yes.
And ball bearing journals actually pressed in rather than floating balls in there.
I'm with you.
Because I suffer a lot when the water gets in, it always corrodes.
I see. And the spokes, you're going to upgrade the spokes?
No, they're 2mm. I would like to get some thicker spokes, but I think the next step is I want to go off from a freewheeling hub to a cassette. So I need to change the hubs out.
I see.
And then ideally, the shaft should be 14mm.
I see.
I mean, that's an M12 high tensile bolt I put in there over the rubbishy thing they had in there, which was.
I see.
Which was a.
So you're almost speccing this up to a small off-road motorcycle, really. You think
more durable,
more durability.
Yeah, I mean, you ride over this stuff in the winter, it's rock hard.
Yeah.
Even at summertime, and it just breaks it up.
I see.
And the thing is, I can't walk very well. I have arthritis. I've got one replacement knee. The other knee needs to be replaced soon.
Oh dear.
So I rely on the bike for a bit of exercise and to get my head straight.
Yeah. I think that's why we're all out here in the middle of nowhere.
So, yeah.
Very interesting with the actual amount of input that you've had with this cycle to actually bring it up to a more durability, increase the durability of it and reliability.
I put a different seat, but I almost want a motorbike seat on there. I find I don't obviously have the right muscles in my fat bottom, and it can be painful. But since going for a Springer and adjusting, since I've changed the suspension, now it floats better. Yeah, it's not as bad.
I'm very sorry. Oh, well, 4-wheel drive's out in force.
Loads of them. I try and stay off the beaten paths because they're always out there in force.
Yeah.
And
I nearly had a dust bath today, but I pulled off. This is so interesting, the amount of work and that you've actually put into it and thought.
I was going to do, and I changed my mind. I was going to run the cabling inside the tubing.
Yeah.
And then I decided not to.
Yeah.
Because it's just easier to remove.
Yeah. Apart from that, the motor, how would you say that the Bafang has...
every year I re-bearinged it. I re-bearinged it about 2 months ago. Changed all the bearings in there.
Yes.
It wears, on the main bearing in here, it wears quite badly.
Does it?
Yeah, it's a lot of load on it, and they've only got a needle bearing on this side.
Yeah.
And you can't set the pressure all off-road. Through rivers, through mud, salt.
So I just missed that. It just blocked out from a reset. So that is 2,000 miles. 2,000
miles, and then I changed all the bearings in it.
How was it to re-bearing the Bafang motor?
Easy.
Easy disassemble?
Yeah, I had no problem with it.
And that is, and you have a slightly more powerful motor in this one.
Factory it's 1,000 watts.
Yeah.
And I've got 9 different power settings, and I always try to use the lowest, but I've adjusted it so I can get about 1,800 watts in it.
1,800 watts. That's virtually up to
almost doubling. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is then exerting a lot of pressure on these bearings.
It puts a lot of torsional load on that, twists around.
Yeah, but you've replaced the bearings on them quite easily. Did you use fully synthetic grease on them, which is a high exertion grease? It's a step above the normal grease that you get. Do you? Okay, yeah.
I know they say about the little nylon gear inside of them, but the nylon gear was absolutely perfect.
Fine, so the grease has not affected the nylon?
On the nylon, no, I haven't found it too.
Fine. There is a grease which is produced by Shell, Ciccolini, others, which is fully synthetic grease, which I've gone over using on the bike. I find it a more durable grease, and some of the Shell grease is designed for aeronautical application, so a very high spec one. And I've just wondered if it's worth sort of paying a few extra quid
every time I'm out, go through muddy puddles, and I've went through a few recently. I give it a quick service.
And if you had a front mudguard, well, of course that would.
I normally do. I just haven't put it on.
I see. Yeah, because I find that with my bike, which is over there, which I'll just zoom in. I always carry a mud flap on it. That absolutely triples, quadruples the amount of life from the chain and the sprocket. It really does make it endurable.
Yeah, I mean that's I think like a stainless steel. It's an e-bike chain.
Yeah.
And I use a dry lubricant on it.
Yeah. So the chain holds out, but really you start noticing it on the...
Change the chain once a year.
Really?
Every 2,000 miles I change it because it does get stretched. And I am a bit hard on changing my gears. The last one broke when I got bogged down in the mud.
I see.
And the bike got absolutely covered in mud and it broke off the derailleur.
And you were then putting through it nearly 1,800 watts of power.
It broke.
It's a wonder it could stay. That is amazing. So, because that's the power virtually of a motorcycle. You start looking at 1,800.
It's a bit over 2 horsepower. Not a lot.
Is it not? Oh, okay.
746 watts to horsepower.
But it's almost 3 horsepower. Okay, fine.
14. Yeah, it's a 2 and a third.
Sorry,
remember that's peak. I mean, and you know, the maximum I've done on the battery is about 55, 60 miles off road.
That's amazing. And the amperage on the battery that you
made? It's a 1.485 kilowatt hours. So it's just under 1.5 kilowatt hour battery.
That's
at 52 volt, but it's about, when it's fully charged, it's about 60 volts.
Right. Okay.
It varies. I don't always charge it fully up. I use a bench power supply.
Yeah.
If I'm not using it, I charge it to 56, 57 volts.
Yes. You charge it with 56, 57?
I charge it when I go out for a day. I will finish it off and I normally give it 59.5 volts.
Right, and then you leave it on that for a while and that just peaks it right to the top.
I mean, I charge it up from solar anyway, so I've never charged it up from National Grid, ever.
So you also...
I use solar power to charge it up. Like I run my whole house, my welder, my plasma cutter, my...
Everything
printer,
off of solar?
All off solar, everything. I use about 20% of the grid a month, and that's normally for the cooker and oven, because I can't always get enough.
No.
You know, I need more power panels. Yeah.
Well, that is absolutely, and I could spend hours talking to you about solar power, but that is absolutely...
No, I love solar power. I know it's not as green as people think it is because of obviously how they make the stuff, but you know, I have a battery bank and charge up during the day and we use it at night time, and I try not to use as little grid energy as possible because it's so expensive. I mean, I printed that off to cover the little nut, and plus to stop myself from cutting my leg.
Yeah, that's absolutely, totally incredible.
And this I found in the range. This is an army
piece of bungee cord.
Yeah, with a really. So I copied their clip design, and now I print them.
So you print those out in 3D.
Yeah. They're not as strong as their ABS or whatever they made them out of, but it does the job. It's a protector. But,
that is absolutely incredible, and thank you very much for running through and explaining.
It's nothing special. It's
right. Okay, I'll take your word for that.
It's not. It's made out of bits of junk, to be honest. It really is.
But it's actually the being able to fabricate and to actually have the ability.
I'm lucky I can do that. I mean, the front shocks are worn a bit, so that's the next thing I'm going to take apart, and they're not right.
So you would find most of the fitments on the bikes, the ready-made bikes, they're not really that durable once you put them under some duress.
Yeah, well, I was going to buy a Hell bike.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost as much money as my car was worth. And I have a habit of falling off.
Yeah.
I have fallen off. I mean, this thing is broken 5 ribs, dislocated my shoulder, broke 2 fingers on it so far. You know, I carry a backpack in there with a complete toolkit.
Yeah. And a spare tyre, spare tube.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as well as a bunch of kit.
But and touch wood.
I never find that the slime quite works in tubes. You are able, though, to actually inflate the tube and actually get home.
I put a whole bottle in each thing. I put so much in. It's I got this is something I got to redo properly.
Yeah.
This was a box.
So you plasmaed out a plate, put it in place to actually accommodate.
Yeah. And I filled up all they had a load of on one side I think I filled up more holes on the other, but this was all hollowed out for some silly reason.
Yeah, it does actually, unless it's actually scientifically it worked out, you can actually...
And they sleeved it by about 1 centimetre, but welded it so weak that it just cracked off. One cracked off one day, and then about a week later on the other one cracked off.
Oh dear.
And then I changed the brakes and it ripped off.
Yeah. But it's a